My name is Scott Davis. I'm 48 years old and have been down on my luck for a while now. I lost my job as a machinist a couple years back when the factory I worked at shut down. Since then, I've been drifting from odd job to odd job, just trying to scrape by. A few months ago, I was between gigs and getting pretty desperate. My unemployment benefits had run out, and my savings were just about depleted. As I was scanning the classifieds one day, an ad on Craigslist caught my eye. Caretaker position for farm in southern Ohio. Simply watch over a 688-acre patch of hilly farmland and feed a few cows. You get $300 a week and a nice 2-bedroom trailer. Someone older and single preferred, but we'll consider all. Relocation a must. You must have a clean record and be trustworthy. This is a permanent position. The farm is used mainly as a hunting preserve, is overrun with game, has a stocked 3-acre pond, but some beef cattle will be kept. Nearest neighbor is a mile away. The place is secluded and beautiful. It will be a real getaway for the right person. Job of a lifetime if you are ready to relocate. Please contact ASAP. Position will not stay open. Include name, age, phone number, and email, please. This sounded perfect for me. I'd grown up in the country and knew my way around farms and cattle. $300 a week wasn't a huge amount, but with free housing, it would be more than enough for me to live comfortably. The secluded rural setting appealed to me too. I'm kind of a loner by nature. I immediately emailed the contact info listed in the ad. A day later, I received an email back from a man calling himself Jack. He said I sounded like a great fit for the position and asked if I could meet him for breakfast at a diner in Marietta, Ohio to discuss further. I readily agreed. The next morning, I drove the 3 hours from my little apartment in Huntington, West Virginia to the diner in Marietta. I arrived a bit early and grabbed a booth. Right on time, a middle-aged man with a blue baseball cap and worn jeans walked in. He scanned the diner briefly before his eyes settled on me. "Scott?" he asked as he approached my booth. I nodded and invited him to sit down. Over breakfast, Jack told me more about the job. He and his nephew, Brogan, jointly owned a large plot of hunting land that had been in their family for generations. They lived in a small farmhouse on the property and were looking for someone dependable to help keep an eye on things. Jack asked me questions about my background and experience with farm animals. I told him about growing up on my grandfather's dairy farm and how I was used to hard, solitary work. Everything seemed to check out well during our conversation. Jack said he just had a few more candidates to interview, but that I was at the top of his list. He would let me know in a couple days if I got the job. I left the diner feeling more hopeful than I had in months. This was exactly the kind of fresh start I needed. 2 days later, I got a phone call from Jack saying the job was mine if I wanted it. He gave me directions to the property and said I could move in immediately. I packed up my meager belongings into my old Chevy pickup and hit the road, ready to begin my new life. After a few hours of driving, I arrived at the turnoff Jack had described. It was a narrow gravel road that disappeared into thick woods. As I bumped along deeper into the forest, I started to feel nervous. This was really isolated, but I convinced myself the seclusion was a good thing. I'd have peace and privacy out here. After about 5 miles, the trees suddenly opened up into a clearing with a small cabin and barn. Jack's faded blue pickup truck was parked out front. As I pulled up, Jack and who I assumed was his nephew Brogan walked out to greet me. Jack smiled broadly. "Welcome to your new home." He and Brogan helped me move my things into the little trailer next to the cabin. It was basic, but clean and comfortable. Once I was settled in, Jack suggested we take a tour of some of the property in his truck. Eager to see more of my new surroundings, I readily agreed. The 3 of us piled into Jack's truck and started driving slowly across the land. It was just as he had described, heavily wooded hills stretching for miles. Jack stopped the truck at one point so we could get out and look at a pond he said was good for fishing. As we stood surveying the pond, I suddenly heard a loud click behind me, followed immediately by a shotgun blast. Searing pain shot through my left elbow as I spun around to see Jack pointing a smoking shotgun at me. Before I could even process what was happening, he pumped the gun to chamber another shell. Adrenaline surging, I turned and sprinted into the woods as fast as my legs could carry me. I heard Jack fire again, but the shot went wide. I didn't look back, I just ran. Branches whipped my face and thickets tore at my clothes as I crashed through the underbrush. My elbow was gushing blood, but I barely felt the pain. I knew I was running for my life. I ran for hours through the dense forest, stumbling often but always staggering back to my feet. As night fell, I was totally lost and exhausted. Finally, I collapsed behind a fallen tree and lay there panting, my whole body quivering uncontrollably. At some point, I must have passed out from shock and fatigue. When I opened my eyes again, the woods were filled with pale morning light. Every inch of my body ached. My shirt was soaked with blood from my elbow. I knew I had to find help, or I might bleed out. I got up slowly and started walking, hoping I would come across a road or building. I was so focused on just putting one foot in front of the other that I didn't notice the sound of traffic growing louder. Suddenly, I came to a small state highway. A wave of relief washed over me. I stumbled from the woods and onto the shoulder, just as a white pickup truck was passing by. It screeched to a halt, and a heavy-set middle-aged man jumped out shouting, "Holy hell, what happened to you?" In a hoarse voice, I quickly explained I'd been shot by a man named Jack, who'd lured me to his property with a phony job offer. The man helped me into his truck and rushed me to the nearest hospital. There, I told the police everything that had happened. An APB was quickly put out for Jack and Brogan. Over the next few days, the chilling truth about my ordeal emerged. The job ad had been bait to lure desperate men to the remote property where Jack and Brogan could rob and kill them with little risk of the bodies being found. The secluded woods had become a killing ground. As I recovered in the hospital, I learned that 2 other men had already fallen victim to the sinister Craigslist plot. The police search ultimately uncovered 4 bodies buried on the property. It was sheer luck that I escaped with my life. If Jack's shotgun hadn't misfired that first time, I would have suffered the same gruesome fate. Thinking back on how close I came to death still gives me chills. A couple weeks after my near-fatal encounter, police arrested Jack, whose real name turned out to be Richard Beasley, at a local bar. His young accomplice, Brogan Rafferty, was found hiding out at his family home. The chilling story of the Craigslist killer soon made national headlines and served as a cautionary tale about the dangers lurking in some online classifieds. As for me, I was just grateful to have survived becoming another one of Beasley's victims. After an experience like that, it's hard to really feel safe anywhere, but at least justice was served in the end. Whenever I need a reminder of how precious life is, I just have to glance down at the scars on my left elbow. I still remember the day I saw that ad on Craigslist. It was January 2nd, 2016, and I was browsing the personal section out of boredom. The personal section was a weird place where you could find anything from dating ads to rants to friendship requests. I usually ignored the scams and the illegal stuff, but sometimes I would read them for fun. But that day, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. The ad was titled "Tulsa Murderer," and it claimed to be from a serial killer. It said that they had just killed their first victim in Tulsa and that they were planning to kill more. It even named 2 public officials, Julie Free and Judge Glasgow, as their next targets. It said that they were the ones who started it all, whatever that meant. The ad read like this: "Tulsa Murderer." I was wanting to thank Tulsa for letting me have my first kill. It all started here, so I was thinking it should also be my first. I was nervous as hell, but I will get over it. It was a stranger on stranger, so the police will have a difficult time. It will not be my last, though. Thinking about going to OKC for next. To the people who started it all, Julie Free, Judge Glasgow. I felt a surge of fear and disbelief as I read the ad. Was this some kind of sick joke? Or was there really a serial killer on the loose in Tulsa? I decided to report the ad to the police, hoping that they would take it seriously and catch the person behind it. The police responded quickly and launched an investigation. They contacted Craigslist and got all the information they could about the ad. They also contacted Julie Free and Judge Glasgow, who worked in the Department of Corrections and the Tulsa County District Court, respectively. They told them about the threat and advised them to take precautions. The police suspected that the person who posted the ad had some kind of grudge against Julie Free and Judge Glasgow, and that they had been involved in the criminal justice system at some point. They tried to find any recent crimes that matched the description of the ad, but they came up empty. They also tried to trace the IP address of the ad, but it was too vague to pinpoint a location. The police concluded that the ad was probably a hoax, but they couldn't prove it for sure. They said that they had seen similar cases before, where someone would text random people disturbing questions about where to bury a body or how to dispose of evidence. They said that these were usually pranks or attempts to scare people, and that they rarely led to anything serious. But I wasn't convinced. What if the ad was real? What if there was a serial killer out there who had already killed someone and was planning to kill more? What if Julie Free and Judge Glasgow were in danger? What if I was in danger? I couldn't stop thinking about the ad for days. I kept checking the news for any updates or reports of murders in Tulsa or OKC. I kept wondering who the person behind the ad was and why they had chosen those two public officials as their targets. I kept wondering if they would strike again, and if they would ever be caught. To this day, I still don't know if the ad was a hoax or not. The police never found any evidence to confirm or deny it. The case remains unsolved and open, and I still wonder if somewhere out there is a serial killer who posted that ad on Craigslist. My name is Haley Turner. I'm 18 years old and I live in Michigan with my parents. This past year has been really difficult for me emotionally. I've been feeling depressed and lonely, and I don't know how to reach out for help. In a moment of desperation, I posted an ad on Craigslist saying I wanted to be abducted and taken away. I don't know why I did it. I guess I just wanted some kind of escape from my life, even if it was dangerous. Looking back now, I know it was an extremely reckless thing to do. A few days after posting the ad, I decided to go through with staging my own abduction. I left the house on August 7th and told my mom I was running an errand. As I drove, I called my friend Lauren on the phone. While we were talking, I suddenly yelled, "He has a gun," and then hung up on her. I knew this would freak Lauren out and she would call my dad right away. After hanging up with Lauren, I parked my car on the side of the road, left the engine running, and took off into the woods. I hiked for what felt like hours until I came across a neighborhood. By then, it was the middle of the night. I saw a house with a puppy in the front yard, so I picked it up and knocked on the door. An older woman answered and looked shocked to see me standing there holding her puppy. I told her some story about being abducted and escaping, and she immediately called the police. Over the next few hours, I was questioned extensively by the police. My story didn't add up, and eventually I broke down and confessed that I had made the whole thing up. I pleaded guilty to filing a false police report, and now I'm on probation for 3 years. I also have to do community service and pay $115,000 to reimburse the police for the search costs. I feel absolutely awful about what I've done. I never meant for it to spin so out of control. I was just a desperate teenager who made an extremely stupid decision. My parents have been supportive, but I know I've disappointed them deeply. The police told me that a man did actually respond to my Craigslist ad, which terrifies me. I regret making that post so much, and I wish I could take it all back. I'm going to get counseling to work through my issues in a healthy way from now on. This experience has taught me a hard lesson, but I'm determined to become a better person.